Herzlich willkommen zum UnleashPeople Podcast, dem Podcast für alle, die HR und Talent Acquisition strategisch denken. Wir, Ina und Christian, liefern euch gemeinsam mit Expertinnen und Experten regelmäßig frische Insights, die euch und euer Unternehmen voranbringen. Heute sprechen wir mit Kathrin Holzfurtner, einer erfahrenen TA Leaderin mit globaler Expertise, über Metriken im Recruiting und doch irgendwie über Quality of Hire. Hello everyone to the new episode of the UnleashPeople Podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest again, Kathrin Holzfurtner, and we will speak about a topic that is very dear to both of us. In general, we will speak about metrics, KPIs, data-driven recruiting, and basically what can we do with that. And to kick things off, I have a very easy question, Kathrin. Working with data finally is more or less the way of working in recruiting. But what I see is that people still focus on very hard metrics and KPIs, such as time to hire, time to offer, right? What's your take on that?
I think first and foremost, our landscape, the people and talent landscape, is overdue for disruption. So there's never been more urgency to actually build brilliant basics in our profession and solving out problems with data excellence. So that's actually a really, really positive trend that we're seeing. So the landscape's evolving, and I think the metrics that matter are evolving as well. So as you said, time to hire, time to fail, some of the old school metrics that many of us have been holding on for a really long time are not cutting it anymore. So static, outcomes-based metrics such as hiring numbers, cost per hire need to be redefined. And I think there's never been a better time than doing it now. So what I'm saying is hire faster, hire cheaper is very tactical. And I think some of these metrics are really incomplete because they ignore long-term value creation. Some of these traditional metrics, they neglect business impact and the economic value of hiring excellence, the economic value of the talent we bring in. And I think that's what I'm really excited talking about today.
Yeah, that's a lot. Let's hope we can stick to our time frame. If not, we need to record another session at a later stage. But you started with that those metrics, time to hire, time to offer, time to fill, don't cut it anymore. Did they ever cut it? Was it ever useful and meaningful to measure every time to whatever metric is something we cannot influence? Might be sickness, might be vacations, might be anything. And then out of a sudden, we have a time to hire of whatever, 50, 60, 70 days. But the process itself only took 10. So it's basically completely meaningless from the beginning. And you don't want to tamper with your data, right? So you have it in your ATS, you know the process took 10 days, and then you manually deduct the 50 days of vacation or whatever in between. Doesn't make sense. For me, those metrics never made sense. For me, even cost of hire doesn't make real sense because, again, there's so many different influences that you just cannot really control, at least in my opinion. But I would say let's not focus on the things that we don't want to use, but rather talk about the stuff that you and maybe I find a new way of measuring in recruiting and talent acquisition, and also ways of controlling recruiting that also takes into account business impact, because we have a function that has a very strong business impact if done properly. Even if we don't do it properly, we still have business impact. We just don't care about it, or people don't care about it, but the impact is always there. So what would be the one metric you would always look at when you
Yeah. So it's almost you're asking me the question, what's a valuable operational signal or operational health metrics that speaks to commercial impact? And I need to select one, which is impossible, because I'll challenge you there. I think it's always a set of metrics that you need. We're always part of an ecosystem in talent, in people. So actually choosing, I can maybe give my favorite. I believe the criteria you need for good ops metrics is you need to be able to speak beyond bums and seats. So beyond hiring volumes. You need to be able to tie to business impact and financial volume. And I think another important factor is you need to be able to forecast, right? Not just look at historic delivery. You need to be able to say, what's the direction we're going? Are we on plan to hit a goal? And then also you need leading indicators. Not just talk about past activity, you need some leading indicators in there. And ideally then, the cherry on the cake is your TA metrics are baked into a holistic narrative across the people function. Like, again, we're operating as part of an ecosystem. So going back, I'd say the most juicy, most important metric for the business is always, are we pacing to the hiring plan goal? So it's not just our percentage of hires we made, our percentage attainment, but are we projected based on our current velocity to hit a target or a milestone in the future? So that's what I'd call a leading metric, pacing to hiring plan goal. And then you can tie it to commercial impact, because you can talk about the story of hires on time and hires within budget means revenue and product excellence on time. So you have a direct connection between the delivery, the engine of the talent function, and the bottom line impact. So talking delivery, that would probably be the number one metric I choose. But I think there's more complexity to that, because I think you need to talk effectiveness, talent quality, impact of the people, cost. I wouldn't neglect cost. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot. I don't disagree. That's something good. I might have some refinements on top of my head, but basically that's what we should do. The only downside I see from my experience is that many organizations do not have a very clear hiring plan. They have a plan that is saying, I need to hire 10 engineers in 2025. That's nice, but you cannot, that has no real business impact, because you don't know when we need a specific person in which team to increase shipping of product, for instance, right? So you need to go one step back to actually really introduce strategic workforce planning. That's another episode for sure. We cannot cover that today, but you need to have a very specific plan when you want to hire which role. And that also is not only external, at least not for me. So if you have a proper planning, you also have promotions, you have internal mobility, you have like really scaling up people, whatever, and then everything needs to feed into the one goal. We need to have that role filled with in June, for instance. And honestly, who cares where the person comes from? You just need to know before whether you need to source externally or whether you have somebody internally. That's the one step you definitely need to do. And then you can look into recruiting again, and for sure also look at those numbers. Recruiting against hiring plan. That's basically the only really hard fact I am looking into myself, because then I can say we are delivering that business value we need to deliver, at least when it comes to filling the role. On top of that comes, at least for me, the other thing I look into and I try to look into, and that's quality of hire. Because just filling the role does not mean you create added value to the company. It will only create added value when the quality of hire is as high as you need it, and in the best world, even higher. But that leads us to the very crucial question: how can we measure quality of hire? And I don't have a proper solution. I have an idea, but there is no standard approach, I guess. That's always tailor-made to the company. What means quality, and how do we measure it? Again, I think we can slightly touch it today, but I'm pretty sure we will not come to a good ending here in a way. But there are steps in between, at least for me.
Yeah.
And the first step for a high quality hire is at the very beginning, at the definition of the role, in the kickoff meeting, to really define what I am looking for, who I am looking for. I say team fit now, but I don't mean it in the old-fashioned way, that we look for someone who is super culture fit. That might be the case, but that does not create a high-performing team. We need to have that one missing puzzle piece that kind of fits into the team and brings it to the next level, in short. And then we need to look into the funnel. How does it develop? My favorite is conversion rates, to really see how many people make it to the next step. And then that also has a clear indication on the quality of the candidates, not necessarily on the quality of hire, but at least a very high conversion rate throughout the process is an indicator of a good quality in the funnel. If you have like drops and a very high conversion rate at top of funnel and then a very low conversion rate at the end of the funnel, that's also a clear sign that you do something wrong at the beginning, because there is a reason why people do not make it to the final step, for instance. And that's something I would always look into. That's my opinion, right? So how do you do it, Kathrin? What's your approach? Do you do hopefully something different so we can have an argument? What's your take?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to unpack now. And before I go into quality of hire and how you can actually tie it to value creation, bottom line impact, time to productivity of new hires, I would want to actually go back a couple of steps. Before you define quality of hire, you need to know what matters to your business right now. Before you spit out a custom logic for measuring quality of hire, you really need to understand a few more things that start with actually going really deep, understanding your business model. Number one, understanding the objectives, the roadmap, to really align your talent operating model with business objectives. In order you set the right KPIs, metrics for your TA function, you need to know where the business is going. That's the very first step. And the second step, I think as well, understanding your financials. Like, in order to create interconnectedness between the investment you make, talent, hiring, location strategy, how that relates to revenue, product excellence, business performance, your milestones in the next 3 to 5 years, that is really essential, and something we really need to lean in much more as talent leaders. And once those, I think, foundations are established and the relationships internally you have with the COO, with your CFO, then you have a holistic view. Then you can build out a TA and a people strategy, and start your backwards planning. So what I'm talking about is you can start linking your hiring and your talent data then with financial results. Then you can start defining quality of hire. Then you can think about what is our current ramp time of new hires, and then build out a much more integrated set of metrics across the people system. I'm not just talking talent acquisition. Going back to quality of hire, I think it's a very interesting one. And I'm personally a big believer for talent acquisition to stay relevant in the future. We need to take ownership of quality of hire. I do very much believe that. And essentially what we're trying to showcase is the value and business impact that new hires bring. That is long-term value creation. How we do that, how we measure the impact of a new hire. Is it attrition, hiring manager satisfaction, new hire performance, revenue per hire? You can have all the creativity in the world to come up with your custom logic, as long as it ties back to what matters to your business right now. I think that's really important. And I think what gets really interesting then is if you as a talent leader are able to tell a narrative and a story between quality of hire. So are the people succeeding, delivering impact? Are the people winning and raising the bar we're bringing in? And how does then that impact financial success? So how does that impact the revenue per employee? How does that impact positively ramp time of new hires? That is value creation, because you link quality of hire with bottom line impact. Your sales cycles might accelerate. Your products delivered and shipped on time. And I think that's where a much more holistic story is being told that raises the game, that helps us blow up the traditional static metrics and really operate at the intersection between talent and commercials.
100%. I'm also a very strong believer in every HR person being entrepreneurial, right? And actually knowing how the company creates products, how they produce, how they make money. Because if you don't, you cannot think of developing a people strategy that ties into the company strategy, right? So you need to fully understand, what do I need to bring to the people that helps the company achieve its goals. And that's the one big piece that is super important for everybody working in HR. I actually would say it's important for all employees to at least have a basic understanding on the product, on the sales cycle, on how to make revenue, to be able to support the company to its fullest extent. That being said, I'm not so open for all aspects that could tie or feed into quality of hire, because for me, a lot of stuff that is being used is one step before you can measure the quality, because the quality is the overarching thing, and you need to make sure that you always have objective evaluation criteria when it comes to measuring quality of hire. And for instance, I have heard, quality of hire is good, is high, if a person gets a salary increase within the first 12 months. Could be, but how do you make sure that the salary increase is based on the quality of the job and not just, well, it's the normal salary increase cycle, right? So you get your 5 or 10% more, that's normal. So it might be an indication, but it's not it. So for me, you need to basically tie it to a very sophisticated, transparent, and usable performance review framework in a way, because that's the only way to measure whether a person is achieving the goals they have to achieve. But again, that's a completely different story, and maybe
excellence in your performance system.
Yes.
HR architecture, but different story.
Different story. And I'm not saying that quality of hire is easy, and I definitely do not say that it's a standalone metric that one piece of the organization can or should measure. There are so many touch points with the business, with leadership, with onboarding. Even onboarding has a very strong impact on that. If you onboard your people in a way that is not fostering quality, and is kind of damaging a good onboarding, the quality of hire will reduce, right? So you have so many different touch points, and you have so many different pieces of the organization that need to be on the same page to actually be able to look into it, that it's a tough piece for sure.
Yeah. But isn't it a good friction to operate in, because it forces us to tear down the silos?
Yes.
Like going back to basics and being able to articulate a simple narrative as a, let's say, as a people organization, as a chief talent officer, chief people officer, you need to be able to tell your C-suite, your executives, what they need to know. And very often, in simple terms, I oversimplify now, what they need to know is, are we winning talent today? Are we delivering on hiring? Are we on track to win talent tomorrow? What are we pacing towards? Are new hires raising the bar? Are they delivering bottom line impact in order for us as company to achieve business goals? I think that is the narrative that we're able to capture with a few high impact talent people metrics that tie back to commercial success. And I think that's where the art as well comes in. Being data driven is one thing, but data that doesn't provide the right context or doesn't help make better talent decisions is useless data, independent of how sophisticated it is.
Yeah, but you can make it look nice on your data dashboard. You can have so many nice bars and graphs and different colors and show all the data pieces you have to hide the fact that you actually do not know what you're doing. That was mean, though. You're right. You should collect every single data point you can. That's for sure. But you need to ask the right questions. You need to define what do you want to learn from that data. And the easy thing is you look at time to hire, and you see it takes us 50 days. That's a plain number. What do you do with it? If you do not ask the right questions, why does it take us 50 days? And what can we do to reduce that? Is there anything in our area of influence that we can change to reduce the time to hire? And then you need to look at all the other data that is feeding into that very easy to collect metric. Where is a stop in the process? Is it a person? Is it a challenge? Is it the candidate? Is it us? Who is it? What is it? Can we influence it? And then you need to break it down again. Is it when you say it's the recruiter, because it's easier to blame us than to blame somebody else, and I don't want to blame the hiring managers. So we do something wrong. We actually leave candidates in the same step for 10 days and only then move forward. Then we need to look into that again. Is it because we forget? Is it because we have so many other things on our plate that it's just taking us 10 days to move those folks forward? Is it the tool? Is it we need to go back and forth with the candidate for 5 days to find a slot, and until we found the slot we cannot move the candidate? There are so many different things that you need to look into. Out of the 50 days, you might be able to reduce the process by 10 days. So that's a completely different approach to the data you have. And it also goes way beyond and much deeper into the data sets that we can collect. And in comparison to what we show, it's a completely different level of sophistication and also of quality then, right?
I think what you're saying is here, time to hire, time to fill, whatever the metric is, it gets valuable if you attach context, if you make it actionable, if you make that metric valuable, if you create a sense of urgency by either attaching a dollar value against it, if you're able to look at the outliers, and then if you can dissect, let's call it time to hire, into its sub-elements, right? to really determine and diagnose where the problems are. Is it from staffing request to activating the role? Is it the sourcing stage, candidate time and funnel at the offer stage? You need to get really, really granular. And I think only then a speed metric, or let's call it a speed signal, such as time to hire, starting to make sense. Like, I'll give you an example. Say, you tell the story of our candidate time and funnel went up from 30 to 40 days for a really critical skill set we were hiring. And the cost of keeping this role open per day costing us $1,000. And we lost important candidates at the final on-site stage because the waiting time is 6 days. Then you kind of tell a story about the financial impact of an open rec. You create urgency for the hiring teams. You can throw the empty chair cost in, delayed revenue generation. When you're actually doing something meaningful to course correct and make targeted improvements with the old school time to hire metric.
Yes, but then we are turning circle again, right? We are kind of turning circles all of the time. To be able to deliver that, you need to understand the business. And you need to understand also the financial impact of an open role. And you need to be able to create the story around that. The story that you then share with the hiring manager first, right? Saying, we have hiring manager, we have a problem. We broke it down. That's the landscape of the process. Here we have an impediment. It's something we need to change if we want to fill the role. And we know not filling the role will cost you so much money, or will cost the company so much money. There's one aspect I want to add as well. If it's a business critical role, the tasks that are being done or need to be done usually are spread out through the team, right? So they have their task and at least a tiny bit more on top of their daily job to do to kind of keep up with the plan, with the business plan, right? So you're putting a lot of strain on those folks as well. That will result in probably sickness, reduced engagement, and all of those negative impacts that you have on top of not filling a critical role. So, but unfortunately, you can measure it, but only in hindsight, right? You can then see after the role is filled, oh, we had increased sickness days, we had increased, productivity actually went down in comparison to the time before. So that's all stuff you can add to your arguments as well. So, and we're just speaking about time to hire right now. We're not even speaking about quality of hire or some stuff. You have so many different aspects included. So that's quite amazing, at least in my opinion, because even the easiest KPI that you can track, if dissected properly and applied properly, will pose so many different questions on your approach, on your recruiting process, right? And that's probably the beauty of it, but also the complete opposite, because you need to be into that and you need to love looking into that specific data sets and digging deeper and deeper. And it also requires one specific skill as a recruiter, as a recruiting lead, and that is you need to be able to stand your place, to kind of also oppose the hiring manager, to say, I know it's maybe easy to not change, but that's the business impact, right? And you can decide on not doing it. We have all the facts here. Then please do not complain if you suffer in the mid to long run, because that's what you will out of the data and out of the information we have. And
I think that's also why data really wins, and why the most successful businesses or most successful people teams use data-driven hiring methods, right? Firstly, you apply a scientific approach to solving your problems. And secondly, You can always argue opinions, but you can't argue data if it's objective, right?
Yeah.
You're using evidence, you tap into the logical appeal of a hiring manager or an executive. And if you really use data to your asks, data to your conversations, even with your one-on-one with your boss, you drive productive conversations about optimizing business outcomes and not emotional conversations anymore. I think that's where the true beauty as well of being more data-driven is. You take the emotion out of the room. And if you want to be a successful recruiter today or a successful people talent executive, I think being data-driven is one thing. It's already an expectation. But then building business acumen and commercial awareness, that differentiates good from great. Like the ability to focus on the right metrics to articulate value creation is like one step to becoming a true partner. And I think that's where friction is and progress is happening right now in our profession.
I don't have anything to add. That's not so often, but I think that was also a very, very good end statement for this conversation. I have the feeling we touched a lot of things. I have the even bigger feeling that we did not touch much more things, right? So maybe we can think of doing another episode at a later stage to maybe speak a bit more about quality of hire. Kathrin, I want to thank you for joining me in this conversation, shedding some light on metrics, on data-driven recruiting. And yeah, thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Christian. And go unleash people.
Das war's für heute. Vielen Dank, dass ihr bis zum Ende dabei geblieben seid und bis zum nächsten Mal.